There are no good guys in this. We can't. Iran's not going to come and save the Palestinians.
They want to harness hatred. They want to harness new terrorists and people that are just filled with anger and wanting revenge.
The reason they're suffering is because the Archons, the powers that were, are trying to provoke a reaction that they can use to start a war.
Hello and welcome to Seder Soul Sailing. On this channel we do tarot readings, astrology, and predictions for world events, countries, cooperations, and any situations that might be influencing the collective.
For this week's reading, some of our subscribers have been requesting a video on the overall future of the Middle East.
Thus we decided to see what the cards had to say about the Middle East and how the current situation in Palestine and Israel will be affecting its future. We would like to do a more optimistic and positive reading, but there's an awful lot of energies at play in this one, and we'll try to be diplomatic without sugarcoating things too much.
I don't think anybody who knows anything about what's happening in the world expects a happy reading about the Middle East at this particular moment in time. And I'm afraid we don't have one to give you if you do expect such a thing.
However, the cards always provide some kind of advice, and they can give some insights in what the root causes and what the main challenges will be. So it will be useful regardless. At least that's our intention. So without further ado, let's get to the reading. To start with, we got the Queen of Wands, and this is generally speaking of the people of the Middle East, and they're very warm, passionate people. The Queen of Wands is somebody who is like creative,
magical.
She's the most magical of the queens. She makes things happen. She's very warm and nurturing as well. There's this warm passion about her, and you see that a lot in Middle Eastern countries. They're very... I lived in Egypt for 7 months or so, and they're very welcoming people. They have a great sense of humor, and that's kind of the Queen of Wands energy.
There's a shadow side to the Queen of Wands, though. There's a shadow side to feminine energy in general, and in a patriarchal society as we've lived on Earth for a very long time, the feminine energy is forced to express itself sort of through side channels, often almost in a bit of mysterious, deceitful ways sometimes.
Sometimes in a deceitful way.
Like the Queen of Wands, the people of the Middle East are intelligent, creative, optimistic, generous, and focused on achieving their goals. But like the Queen of Wands, they also have a shadow side. Though a generally positive card, the Queen of Wands speaks to the shadow aspect of a situation more than do the other Queen cards. Dogmatic thought tends to impede on processing shadow work, and Islam is the most dogmatic of the three religions that developed from the mythology of the Semitic tribes of the Near East: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. One of the messages that the Queen of Wands brings is that we need to examine the shadow sides of both our personal psyche and our collective belief systems. For better or worse, religious dogma has a stronger hold on the people of the Middle East than in other parts of the world. This unprocessed shadow energy can manifest as conflict and even war. We're seeing this play out right now in the clash in Palestine.
So this makes a lot of sense with the overall situation, which is the High Priestess, and they're very much related to each other, these two cards. I mean, the High Priestess is a major arcana cards, but she's also this magical feminine figure that is very kind and nourishing, but has a darker side. And I think what's happening now is that the people of the Middle East, they are being kind of met with this deceptive energy where the powers that are still intending to be, are using this to control them and kind of chase them into this fear mentality.
The Middle East is very much a patriarchy, and patriarchies bring out the shadow side of the High Priestess. The High Priestess exemplifies feminine magic, where the magician is a call to express magic into the world through a forceful, direct manner. The High Priestess draws magic into herself, nurturing it, giving it life in her womb. At her best, the magic of the High Priestess gives birth to compassion. But in patriarchal societies, drawing in magic in a feminine way frightens the patriarchy. forcing the High Priestess to use the manipulative shadow side of her magic. The Archons are relying on this deceitful shadow side of the High Priestess to manipulate the people of the Middle East into reacting to Israeli atrocities in an angry, violent way rather than going within themselves and balancing their anger with compassion and intuition, which characterizes the people of the region. Reacting violently leads to situations like the recent hanging of Sunni Muslims in Iran for being involved in a bombing.
So what they're doing is basically using this feminine kind of manipulation, playing on emotion and creating these reactions that ultimately, even though it might create some kind of resolve in the beginning, isn't what is needed to be done right now. Like, of course, you need to defend yourself if you're being attacked, but they're creating like these, this uprising of like anger and hatred that is basically like feeding the machine that we want to be defeating at this time, right? And we see in the Gateway card is interesting. The Four of Pentacles speaks of, hoarding. Usually, I think in this particular scenario, it speaks of them, of the people of the Middle East holding on to what is truthfully theirs. What is good is that they don't really trust the governments to the same extent that people do in the West, less so now than before, but regardless, they kind of know that they can't be trusted. And still, they have a huge amount of control. There's a lot of military presence. And it's terrible, but it's very easily in many regions from the government to come in and just take over. And so what people need to be doing right now is to hold on to what matters to them, not just give it up, not to just give in and think that everything is doomed. Like, really take a deep look on what is important, and whether that's your values or your valuables, physical or emotional, that is important right now, because that's going to define what's coming, how much they allow them to take away from them, I think.
What people in the Middle East need to do right now is hang on to their personal sovereignty and not grant outside forces power over them, but to own their own power, own their own personal sovereignty.
Yeah, and that comes to both our physical actions, but also our emotional landscape. Not get so carried away, because right now, the present moment, things are not looking so good. The tower is as it looks like. It is chaos, it is destruction. It is exactly what's going on in Gaza right now.
We see images on television, we see images on social media of the most heinous atrocities being committed against the Palestinian people. And it's understandable that we get very angry and want to react. But as horrible as this is, as much as these people are suffering, the reason they're suffering is because the Archons, the powers that were, are trying to provoke a reaction that they can use to start a war. And we have to do what we can to end this suffering. We have to do what we can to restore the sovereignty of the Palestinian people in their own land. But at the same time, getting angry at Israel and wanting to kill Israelis in retaliation is not the answer. That's not going to lead to resolution.
Because that's exactly what they want. So there's a book that recently came to our attention. It's called Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. And it was written back in the 1950s. So what he talks about in this book is that the main objective of secret societies, the people that are orchestrating all of this, is to establish a one world government and to create a new global system, also known as the New World Order. They aim to abolish all religions, all governments, and to destroy traditional family life. So these people create conflict and war on purpose so that they can achieve world domination.
I'm not a huge fan of dogmatic thought at all, whether it's political or religious. But what they're really hoping to do is destroy the family, destroy community and family. And
the course of society, right?
Right. They break us down. They break our family units down. They break our communities down, and we become isolated and become much easier to control.
So the thing with the tower is that it's not always a negative thing, because usually after the destruction, something else comes. But if you just take away all the foundations, when you take away both the good and the bad, in whether it's religion or government, you just have destruction. And when you don't have a vision for what comes next, then this lasts for much longer. And the root of this situation, this whole reading, is the Nine of Swords. And this speaks to, I think it speaks to people in the Middle East having gone through like this nightmarish, difficult period for a long time. Like the anxiety and the anticipation of something's gonna go really wrong, and it has been. It's been like, it's not been a peaceful place to be, depending on the country, of course. But for instance, what's happening in Palestine and Israel right now, it's nothing new, and I don't think it's a surprise for anyone in that region, really. So next we got the astrological energies, and here we got the Knight of Wands modified by strength. And again, just like the Queen of Wands card, we see the desert in the background here. And I think this has to do with people in the Middle East being encouraged to step into this more active masculine energy where they're taking charge and they're finding their own personal strength in order to stand up against what the higher ups wants them to be doing, and not to just surrender and give in and like give up on what matters to them, but like really fight the good fight in a way.
They've got the strength to do it. These people have been through a lot for a very long time. Ancestral trauma goes back thousands and thousands of years, but they've got the strength for this fight. They're there. They and it's not, like I said earlier, I don't think what we're looking at is a war where the Arabs rise up against the Israelis. Let's do the math. That would not end well for the Israelis.
No.
I don't care how many bombs we send them.
And I don't think people in the US are ready to send the troops just yet either. The government sure is. The government's always ready to sacrifice pawns in the game, but people have had it.
All wars are basically one group of rich, powerful oligarchs who want something from another group of rich, powerful oligarchs, and they really don't care how many peasant children they have to kill to get it. What we need to do is just not engage in their game. We said this in our last reading. If they want to, if Biden wants to send troops to the Middle East to I don't know, to do what? Start a war with Iran or whatever?
Great idea.
He can start by sending his boy Hunter.
So in our fear position, we got the Five of Cups modified by the King of Pentacles. When I first saw this, I thought they're afraid of some kind of loss, some kind of thing they have to give up that they don't want to give up. And it's modified by the King of Pentacles. So we believe this has to do with the economy, actually. It's as the economy collapses, people are feeling it like more and more. And I think it has to do with the main topic here, which is this imbalance in masculine and feminine energy, where the men are feeling like they can no longer provide as well as they used to be able to provide for their families. And that is demasculating in many ways, and that is taking away the needed confidence. And that's half the point. I mean, if you can't feed your family, you don't feel ready to stand up against the government either. Or sometimes, I mean, that can be a motivator. Here, it's kind of this fear of survival that is making it difficult to oppose these external forces.
That might improve in the future, with the psychological future.
The psychological future is the Six of Cups, and this has to do with, well, childhood. It has to do with nostalgia sometimes. So I think it could either be them looking back at how things used to be and kind of missing this and wanting to get this back. It can also be realigning with past values, like what is it that actually matters.
One of the things I really love about Muslim culture is this fierce love of family. And it seems like whoever's orchestrating this debacle, this mess, this slaughter in Palestine is trying to break up and destroy that family. And it looks to me like
they want to harness hatred. They want to harness, new terrorists and people that are just filled with anger and wanting revenge.
It looks to me, though, that the people of the Middle East might reconnect with their family, with their culture, with their roots. They're waking up from this nightmare. And
And they're living it right now.
They're living through the chaos, the explosion, but after the explosion comes release, and hopefully that will involve reconnecting with their core values, with their love of family, with their home.
And you see this in the desires too. In the desire position, we got the Two of Cups, and it's modified by the Ace of Wands. And these are really great cards. This has to do with partnership. So it could be, oftentimes it's marriage. I think it also has to do with like cooperation between countries in the Middle East, like more of the different nations are supporting each other more than they are now. That's what people want, and they want a new beginning where it's passion. This is the Queen of Wands passion. So they basically want to live in a world where things are much more aligned to their hearts, to their core values, and the kind of world that would exist if true democracy was a thing, I guess.
If democracy was something...
was real. Not just
democracy was real, yeah.
Exactly. The future isn't very pretty. There's a lot of difficult energies here, and I think I know what they mean, more or less. In the future, we got the devil. And I think in this reading, I think this is somebody who is... I think this devil is somebody who portrays themselves to be something they're not, or something that seems to be a good option, but it's actually just trickery. And it
might be somebody parading as it is modifying the final outcome as some sort of religious leader. We'll talk about that a bit more.
Yeah. And I think it has to do with the overall situation card, which was the High Priestess, right? So we got the dark side of the High Priestess. And here comes the devil. Here comes the proposition. Here comes whatever might seem like it's a good way out of the difficult situation. But the final outcome of going along with that is the Ten of Swords. And if people don't see through this, if they don't see through this character or whatever it might come out as, this is going to happen. And it looks like it's some kind of... the Hierophant oftentimes represents some religious authority. Right? And it's in the Middle East, so I think it might be somebody who portrays themselves to be I don't know if it's an imam or they have some kind of religious take on something and people go along with it.
An Ayatollah.
Yeah.
I mean, Iran plays a huge role in this, and we've done a lot of research into Iran, and it's a book, or at least a very long article, and it was too hard to fit into this, but Iran is not... There are no good guys in this. We can't... Iran's not going to come and save the Palestinians. Saudi Arabia is not going to come and save the Palestinians. Egypt's not going to come and save the Palestinians. At the same time, America's not going to come and save the Israelis. It's
every man for its own.
Yeah.
There's not much of this right now.
What I see with this card, with the devil, I'm afraid the temptation is going to be to go to fight their war.
In the name of God, right? I think that's going to be a part of this. Like, you have to fight for your country, you have to fight this war in the name of God.
Smedley Butler, I think that was his name, he wrote a book back in the 1930s. He was a World War I general. And he wrote a book called War is a Racket. A rich man's racket, he called it. And he wasn't wrong. And what I'm afraid of is that people in the region are going to get sucked into fulfilling whatever the goals of this scam that is taking place. A scam, it's no joke. Thousands and thousands of people are dying and suffering, and homes are being destroyed. People are losing everything in the world. It is no joke, but it's still a scam. It's orchestrated chaos, right? Just like the Tower shows us. Yep, by somebody in a position of authority, somebody people believe in, and people of the Middle East are being betrayed from all sides. This is true of all the people of the Middle East. It doesn't matter if they're Israelis are being betrayed by the Netanyahu, Palestinians are being betrayed by Hamas, Iranians are being betrayed by the current Ayatollah. The fact is that people are being betrayed, and they're going to realize that. That's why people need to look to themselves for their power. They need to own their own power. They need to own their own personal sovereignty.
rather than leaning on this guy. And the Hierophant is it's not always a negative card, but it is usually an authority, a leader, usually having to do with spirituality, right? So it's kind of a warning here that shouldn't be trusting. Not all that glitters is gold.
Don't be tempted by these people.
Using your own discernment.
That's true in the United States, although I have to say I meet very few people who are being tempted to support Biden and a draft for war, whether it's in Ukraine or Iran or Israel or Iraq or wherever the hell they want to start a war this week.
But I believe that's because religion has a stronger hold, deeper roots than governments. Like, people at this point in time, people are seeing through government BS, ancient texts, however, and people that claim to be, representing them, still have a lot of this going on, this deceptive and sometimes manipulative and an ill-intended way of affecting people.
The world is going through basically hell right now all over, whether it's the collapse of the U.S. dollar and the skyrocketing inflation in Western countries, in Europe, not being able to heat their homes. But no place is going through hell quite like the Middle East right now. And the people there really need to have their own power. They need to act. But they don't act by falling to the temptations of the Hierophant. They act by owning their own personal sovereignty. They have the power. They have the strength. This is where they're going to find it. They need to hold on to their own values, their families, their communities, and not let these Archons
continue to
stab them in the back. It's time to just say no to this crap.
And that's really all we have to say about this reading.
For next week, we're going to do a reading about the implosion of fiat currency and fractional reserve banking and the central banking cabal, and the attempt to replace money as we know it with a central bank digital currency, a one world money, one world government sort of thing, a World Economic Forum system based kind of, I think, on what's going on in China, where if they don't like what you're saying on social media, they'll just push a button on their computer and you won't be able to buy groceries or pay your rent. They're getting ready to do this, so let's see if they're going to succeed. We haven't laid the cards out yet, so let's hope that they're going to screw the pooch.
Yeah, let's hope they fail. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if this video was of any use for you. If there's any topic you want us to do a reading about, please comment below.
And if you want a personal reading, contact us. The cards have been kind of grim lately, but they're usually very gentle, very kind, and very helpful for humans. They love humans. They're not so crazy about governments.
No. It's really different when you do a reading for an individual, because you can give more personal advice, and, I think our personal fates are far less set than that of a collective. So with that said, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in next week's video.